All right, so let's start. This is our fifth lecture, and we're going to talk about slides. And apparently I need to switch. Yeah, and today, basically we just talk about two things, which is the role of slides in a presentation and how to make good slides. So I don't intend this class to be sort of like, oh, how you do talk style of presentation, because one, that's like a really, really challenging and really, really important topic, and there have been a ton of resources like, Patrick Winston's How to Speak class covering that. But also, this class is about visual design in terms of scholarly communication, so I want to focus on the visual part of slides. Okay, so then let's talk about, firstly, presentation. So what's the nature of presentation? And in reality, I think it's pretty straightforward, which is you got some information that could be an idea or maybe some knowledge you want to share with the audience from the presenter. And then the idea is like you want to get the information like conveyed to the audience given this like specific amount of time that you got. Maybe it's like 10-minute talk, or maybe like an hour session like ours. And then it's kind of interesting trade-off between these three things. The information you want to deliver, the audience you want to reach, and then the time you have to deliver your talk. And more specifically, I think the idea here is like, okay, if you have more technical and in-depth content, that will reach a smaller audience, and it takes more time to explain the ideas and concepts. If it's like more like technical and more like difficult to understand. And finally, if you make the talk longer, it's like the smaller the audience will be, or maybe the idea is like the longer text, the longer presentation, the lower retention of the audience, and then maybe people will be less like attentive in the end. So the point is, okay, how can we build slides that can help with this, like the tension between this almost like infinite triangles here, right? And in order to do that, we can go back to some of the earlier concepts we just covered in the class. For example, what constitutes a good visual? We talked about like, okay, good visual should be able to help us communicate the information effectively, efficiently, and faithfully. And more importantly, it should be able to emphasize and de-emphasize the information for the audience to help them to understand and receive the topic nicely. So, can we draw some analogies here from the visual to the slides here to solve this challenge here? And then of course, I think we can definitely do a nice thing here. So, for example, in terms of information, we can design slides that learns to decompose and emphasize the complicated information that we got, and hopefully it can guide the audience's attention to understand the topics here. And then in terms of audience, the whole point of making slides is like, okay, we can firstly capture their attention during this whole section of talk. By catching attention, I'm not saying like throw them a giant wall of text, but do things strategically to keep them attentively reading, understanding what's going on there. But also, like, visual memory is very powerful, so we, like, by properly do this like slides, we can leave like strong impression on their mind, and hopefully they can like think more about our presentation, bring the intended message back home, and then maybe even going back here, because in Patrick Winston's talk, he literally mentioned that he watched someone's talk twice. First time to absorb the content, the second time even to know the style. So that's kind of like the ideal goal, which is like you want to provide people something a little bit more than the information, but also trying to let people keep coming to your presentation and talk multiple times. And finally, about time, like time is typically considered as like a constraint in terms of we only got that much of time to deliver our talk. So how can we compress the information? Adding more and more. So there seems to be always a ton of text and then always a ton of content for the technical intense talks. But then I want to say is like I think we can use time progression as a prop to do something very interesting and then to get people's attention and then trying to achieve all the goals above. And in order to talk about this, I want to take some script from the Prestige, and then there's a giant wall of text, and I don't want you to read everything here. I hope you are kind of familiar. But then the goal is like, okay, it tells about how impressive magic shows that attracts people, right? And then the first thing is you want to show something ordinary to the audience. And then the second step is trying to make the ordinary thing to do something extraordinary, such that it impress people. And then in a typical magic show, it's kind of like, oh, you want to maybe bring something, you want to hide something, you want to throw something away, and then it's okay. But then in a magic show, typically when they hide something, they want to bring something back in like a very other like unexpected fashion, right? But then maybe in our like technical talk scenario, I try to do some adaptation for the script, but I feel like we need to just tell people why, right? So imagine in a talk, you tell people, okay, here is some methodology which you're familiar with. But then, we can use it for something very, very important and then people have never thought about before, and it can get us very nice performance. And the third step is like tell people why. And then this progression, this nonlinear path to guide people's attention, guide people's interest through this like presentation, and then like conveying this information through like visual design slides is kind of like one technique I found super powerful. And then I feel like that's kind of the way you can use time here, because like it's not using time. It's not all about like packing more information in the time, but also trying to more effectively use people's time. Because if you can keep people's like attention all the time, then actually you are getting more time from the audience. Okay, so then the simple question becomes, how do you make good slides? And similarly, we can draw something back to our earlier like discussion there, which is how did we make figures, right? And then we were trying to draw some analogies between making figures and writing code. We talked about what's the algorithms in terms of making figures, what's the language we can use, and what's the tooling to facilitate that progress, right? And here we can do something similarly, which is, okay, try to think about what are the algorithms, what is the language we can use, and what are the tools at our disposal to make such slides to achieve the goals which is mentioned. And then similarly here, I got some recipe here in terms of decompose, highlight, zoom for the algorithms, and we have a lot of like interactive components like transition, animation, interaction here, such that you can achieve certain purposes like we just chatted before. And then there are many tools we can use, but I just want to show you one thing that's a key to everything, which is like Smart Animate. And then as long as you know how to use Smart Animate, you don't need to think about like anything harder than that, because that's so powerful, and that's kind of very easy and intuitive to use. Okay, so that being said, let's do this, which is okay. So we go back to check all the different components there, from decompose to highlight to highlight wall of text to zoom to transition to Smart Animate. So the next is kind of the same as before. We want to do some interactive demos to show how I did that. But actually, if you look closely enough, we have all the components, like from decompose, highlight, or text to zoom to transition for all the previous slides in this talk already. So if I may go back, actually we can just start from like the first slide, and then just look at it again. You will see like that's already there. So let me try to present again, which is now the second time. I want you to take a look at that, all these like different techniques I've used for the previous slides, and then now after that we can delve into the technical like implementation of all the components. So here, if you take a closer look at this transition here, you see that I use like push-up transition in terms of showing this like section or maybe chapter kind of feelings in the talks. And then from this one, the second, you see like this is like this is a push-up. But then from presentation to the second slide here, it's kind of like it's in that section, so I did not use that same type of transition, but I just used like a more subtle transition as like indicator for people saying that, oh, they are like kind of like in the same chapter. And then gradually, if you can see here, like from here to starting from here, what I'm basically doing is like I'm decomposing the whole like description about the tension between the three components in this like individual steps. And I'm doing this like highlighting for the relevant components there, such that I'm also doing the highlighting for the text, such that you will see, you'll be guided to look at what's going on each slide, but also without losing context to the previous ones. And then, of course, I think here is like another interesting trick, which is like, okay, if you look at here, basically I just swapping between like, okay, this is still the same section, but then I have this like push up kind of effect. It's telling you, hey, this is something like a little extra to this addendum to the slide. And here is a funny technique, which is like I use this like the zoom transition to bring back that slide as like a reference, like I kind of like a cheat sheet in terms of our discussion on this slide. This is kind of zoom effect. And then of course here is all this like highlight the highlights. Basically what I did is like, okay, when I'm talking about information, I highlight that line and also make the information like text a little bit bigger. And then similarly here, basically I recite that information and then I try to highlight and focus on all the audience line. And similarly for the, I mean, there's an annotation, but similarly for the timeline here, okay? And then finally, this is like the giant wall of text. And then basically, you know, it's kind of okay to have one or two such slides per slide, I mean, per slide deck or per talk, but I feel like what I typically do is like, you know, what you really want from this like a quote is something specifically relevant to your a topic here, and then you can choose to highlight them, and then just surface this like extra layer of information for the audience, and such that they kind of like get interested in like easily take away this key piece of information that you got. Okay, so then yeah, this is another transition which is like telling you, oh, this is like kind of like different section here. So, okay, so basically, we've seen decompose, we've seen highlight, we've seen zoom, we use transition, we use animation. I will talk a bit more about interaction, and then everything is done through smart animation. So including this is like this shocking effect in terms of you can just squeezing everything and then bring back to the structure here. Okay, so is that good? Yeah. Okay. So next is kind of like again this type of demo thing, just like showcasing how it could be done, and then what are the actual like magic behind the smart animate. So yeah. So if we go to here in terms of the like basically I laid out all this like different like little components for each section here, but then if you can take a look at this few slides here. So the decompose is kind of very straightforward and kind of easy to do. Things like you just need to break down like a complicated concept into multiple tiny steps here, and then trying to involve them with this like a proper like transparency or opacity, which I'm just trying to show you. But basically the idea is like, okay, so you have this initial slide, and then you can literally see the animation from this one to here. It's just like smart animate, such that I mean this smart animation is like a common like transition that's already being implemented not only for Figma but also for Keynote and PowerPoint. But then the idea is like this algorithm, they have implemented certain algorithm that they will try to find the corresponding objects between this slide and this slide, and then they will try to build up the proper transition between this two slide. So for example here I'm showing you this like a tiny demo here, and then if if you just go by, you just see okay, it knows like this two slide has the same object, but this one has been like there's a color change between these two objects. So they just automatically adjust the transparency and then also show up the text here, right? So similarly here, it's kind of the same, but it's not. It's just like changing the colors here. I mean, changing the transparency here, which you already know how to do that. It's through Figma by changing the layer passing mode as well. Okay. Decompose is not something technically challenging, but then similarly for highlights here, it's also kind of straightforward in terms of the actual transition here is just like a smart animation, and then in terms of like you just need to properly do the de-highlights for other elements, and then just like do this like enlarge for the sides for the information here, because you can see like the height of the object is like 280. The 145, and then here is like 130. So by properly like enlarge the size, it can automatically infer the change here, right? And similarly for the rest. Still, for the wall of text experiment, it's also kind of the same. Basically, you just need to reduce the transparency for most of the elements. But then, one of the very interesting and technically challenging component is to implement something like the zoom transition using Smart Animate. Because, still think about the concept here, which is in the Smart Animation, your goal is trying to, the goal of the algorithm is trying to find the corresponding elements across these two slides, right? So if that is the case, then if you want to do the zoom, then you want to design the component such that it contains the element that's already happened on the previous slide. So for example, here, I should do a copying for this slide as well. But let me do this, and then hopefully it should be working here. Okay, I need to remove this one here, and then I need to connect these two together. But then, okay, so let's check out this. So from this slide to the next one, there's this like zoom transition between these two. But then, in reality, is like on this slide, you have to include the actual component for the other ones, because like you see, there's like the hidden layer here, right? And if I were able to copy this and paste it outside this slide deck, maybe I will place it here. You can see this there's already this gigantic version that's being overlaid on the same slide, such that I don't know if I can really show that nicely, but you see there this if I move this to the top of the slide, you will see there's this original slide. There's bigger version of the slide on the original slide here, such that if I move back, so if I show you, it's kind of we are doing the zoom for the original slide there, such that you can build up this kind of technique to show up this the zooming effect of the objects, right? So yeah, so in terms of transition, I think it's pretty straightforward, because ranging from a Keynote to PowerPoint to Figma, it allows you to specify the specific mode of transition between this this page object. For example, you can have the smart animation, you can have this moving options, and of course like Keynote or PowerPoint, it will allow you more and richer options to choose between this type of page transitions. And then finally, Smart Animate is the tool that empowers everything here. So one thing I've missed so far is about the interactivity, and I want to show you two other examples there to illustrate how interactions can be enabled in the context of Figma, which is which is like I want to show you like a separate like slide deck that has like this like type of interactivity here, which is if you note it at the bottom. So the idea is like I build up this like slider at the bottom, which you will see like it feels like you are transitioning, you are dragging the objects between the slider here, just trying to incorporate this like zooming effect here, right? So the idea is like basically this dragging action is kind of like a fake one. Basically, it's kind of it's showing you that this object can be dragged, and then it allows you to it's hooked to this like transition, which is like if you drag this object, and then it will be hooked to show you like to transit into the next slide here, and then this also be done in a similar way, combining the zoom action as a zoom transition as well as smart animation, and then similarly you're just zooming out in a similar way. The other kind of interaction, which is like the real interaction, is where we started talking earlier at our class in terms of the fundamental section, which if you recall, we have the interaction that allows you to scroll on page for different versions of design here. And this is kind of the real interaction here, which I think this is like one of the functionality that's only available in Figma. That is like you can define this hover mode, saying that like scrolling mode, which is like there are certain objects that are not scrollable on this page, like on the other for the other parts of the slide, but then the following elements here is scrollable just within this slide. Yeah. Okay, so so I'm gonna stop here for a bit, and then for any possible questions, and then I think this is kind of like a compact a tutorial in terms of like improving visuals, especially in terms of animations for the slides and for the presentation. But I think the overreaching goal here is always to focus on trying to guide people's attention and then trying to improve people's perception of the content through this like techniques in terms of animation. And a smart animate makes everything very easy to implement.